This is a production of KMmedia.pro. Welcome back to Positive Talk Radio. Our goal is simple: to explore evolving ideas one conversation at a time. So come on over into our world. I know you'll like it, because on today's show, I've been looking forward to today's show for quite some time. I've got a couple of folks that I'm going to introduce in just a second. But before I go there, I have to talk to that world-renowned fellow by the name of Eric. Eric, how are you?
Good afternoon, Kevin. I'm doing fine. Always happy to see you on Fridays.
It's great to be here on KIXI. I love coming here. It's great to be here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which we do every Friday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, as well as KKNW on Monday, Wednesdays, and also Friday at noon. So it's great to be here. And you know, Eric, you've been around the business for a long time, and I know that you're pretty famous in your own right. And I've got to ask. Well, I just wanted to ask you, what's it like being interviewed by Oprah?
You know, I wouldn't know.
or there are tons of them. Larry King. One of these. I wish I could have been interviewed by Larry King at one point. Hey, how are you? And or on the Today Show or Good Morning America or CNN. The guest we have today has been on all of those. He's world renowned. People know him and by his name. And I'm looking forward to this, Eric. So thank you for allowing me to be here.
Of course. Let's bring on our guest.
I think we should. This is going to take the entire time. Now, we've also got him booked for a couple of more times in the next coming weeks, because he's on a bit of a quest. He's on a bit of a mission. His name is James Arthur Ray. You may have heard of that name. He was a co-member of the Secret, if you remember the movie. He was in The Secret. He has had a 500 in Inc.'s 500 top countries or companies in the country in 2009. He's been a distinguished Toastmaster. He's a coach. He's written a book, several books, and we get to talk to him and his lovely wife. Her name is Bersabeh. And let's bring him on right now, Eric.
Hello, Kevin.
Hey, guys, how you doing?
Hey, Eric, we can't see you, but hello to you as well. I'm doing great.
Welcome.
No. Hey, Eric. Thanks.
It is awesome to have the two of you and to talk about the width and breadth of your careers. It's had some tremendous ups. It's also had some difficult downs. And we're going to talk about all of that. But the cool thing is that in the course of life, you are on the upswing again and are building a terrific company, and you're working with a lot of people. And I love your mission, which is you want to positively affect 1 billion people on the planet. I think that's
minimum.
And that's one of the reasons why you're here is that we're going to talk about that. But I got to ask you, because most of us will never have the opportunity to go to a hotel, and I don't know if it was in Chicago or where it was, but go to a hotel and have a nice room, and then have the big black car pick you up and take you to the studio, and then they apply makeup, and you have a sit down with Oprah Winfrey, and you kind of map out what you're going to do, and then you get to be on the Oprah Winfrey show. What's that like?
Well, it was and don't forget, she flew me via private plane to Chicago.
Oh, I forgot that part.
I was speaking in another city the night before, and I couldn't find a connection to get there. So she told my team, "Don't worry, I'll just send a plane." So it was a highlight. It was a pinnacle in my career. It was really I had visualized that and mentally rehearsed that, Kevin, for decades, literally. and not all the time, but I would turn on the Oprah show on the rare occasion I was home during the day, and I would watch her interviewing people, and I would visualize as the camera came in close on her that she was talking to me, and I would feel the feelings of that, and I would answer to the TV by myself, which most people would have thought I was crazy if they were walking into the room, which they didn't. But it was the pinnacle, and I had told people, I had told a colleague of mine, I was with AT&T School of Business, my last job at AT&T. I was a C-suite consultant, and I was working with organizational culture and doing leadership and performance work. And I had told my colleague literally decades earlier, I'm going to be on Oprah someday. I don't know why or where that came from. And she said, for what? And I said, I don't know, but I just know I am. And she thought, okay, that's kind of arrogant. But whatever, whatever,
Yeah, whatever you say.
But it did happen. And it was a phenomenal time. And I think probably one of the most memorable parts of that, I was on twice. The first time they brought me and was it 4 others from The Secret?
I think so. I think Jack Canfield was there.
Canfield and Lisa.
Lisa was there. Linda. Is that right?
No, there's no Linda.
What's her the lady that made
Rhonda.
it? Rhonda.
Rhonda Byrne was there, and
My bad.
and Michael Beckwith was there, and myself. And she invited me and Beckwith back.
Yeah.
Not the rest of them. So it was really, but it was in that first show that I said to her during the break, I said, true forgiving is the ability to say thank you for giving me that experience. And she said, I don't believe I've ever heard that. She said, when we come back on air, please say that again. And that was kind of a highlight for Oprah to say, please repeat that when we get back on air. But it's true. And it was true, every bit as true then as it is now, because all forgiveness truly ends in gratitude. If you don't come to a point of gratitude, then you haven't really forgiven. Yeah. You've still got some bitterness and anger that needs to be let go of.
What did it feel like because I remember when The Secret came out and everybody was talking about that movie. Everybody was talking about the law of attraction and what it meant. And, I've had the opportunity to interview Neil Donald Walsh, who was also in that. And by the way, for those of you that don't realize how big Oprah was at that time, there was a guy by the name of Gary Zukav who wrote a book called Seed of the Soul. And the book wasn't doing all that well until Oprah put it on her book list. And it became a million seller because that's the kind of impact she had.
Right.
And not so much to this day because she's kind of gone off, but and doing other stuff. But it was pretty amazing. And she's an amazing lady. And I'm so glad that you had the opportunity to do that and to educate her a little bit in something that she hadn't really given much thought to.
Yeah. How about that? How about that? So yes, it was a phenomenal experience. All that whole time was a phenomenal experience, and everything in life, as Moses said when he came down from Mount Sinai, I have brought you both a blessing
and a curse.
Everything comes in a dual package, and so as beautiful and as wonderful as it was to be that much in demand at the time, there's a downside or a dark side to that too. And I think that's a really important lesson for most of us to learn, particularly the younger generations who want to be famous. They don't care what they want to be famous for. What do you want to be famous for? Oh, I just want to be a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Well, doing what? Well, I don't know, but I just want to be famous. But there's a downside to that too. And I won't belabor it, but there were so many times when I was on the road over 250 days a year and speaking in 3 or 4 cities a week, every single week, and 2-day weekends, and just living out of a suitcase. and I would be racing for an airplane, a flight at some point, and people would recognize me because you're right, The Secret was such a phenomenon, and they would go, oh, whoa, wait, aren't you James Arthur Ray? And I'd say, yes, I am, and I'm trying to pull my bag because I'm running late for the gate. And well, could you, I know you're in a hurry, but could you just answer a quick question for me? Well, you have two choices there. You're either a jerk or you risk missing the flight. And I chose option B. I risked missing the flight because, those kinds of things come with the package, and it happened all the time in the gym. I know this is your personal time, and I'm having to get a quick workout in and get to a meeting at 11. I know this is your personal time, and I don't want to bother you, but let me ask you this quick question. So, being famous and being a public figure and being recognized is not all it's cracked up to be. There's a dark side of that as well.
I believe that. And if you talk to most people that are really ultra famous, they lose their freedom. There are certain things you can't do for certain Okay, you can bypass the line at a restaurant and you can get a nice table, but other than that, you've got paparazzi, you've got all these people around you and all that, so it makes it very difficult. And especially life is a journey, and we all live. And I know, and hopefully we'll get into Bersabeh's story just a little bit as well. Life is a journey, and yours was going sky high, and you were doing great things, and then there was a tragedy that happened, and that happened right in the middle of all of this stuff going on. And then but because life is a journey, you accepted that, and you've moved on from it. I don't want to belabor that either, but I will give you the microphone to tell us whatever you feel comfortable about that time.
Well, I'm an open book, Kevin. So whatever you want to talk about, I'm very transparent because I believe that God prepared me for the difficult time that we're living in right now. Because there's a lot of people right now facing tremendous difficulties. We live in turbulent times, let's face it. And so you have to have the mental toughness and the emotional strength to push forward through those turbulence, or they're going to knock you down. And I see so many people getting knocked down because they don't have the mental toughness and the emotional strength. Well, I had a tsunami hit me in 2009. I was at the top of my game, and my team and I were conducting a 5-day deep dive retreat in Sedona, Arizona. And when I say deep dive, we were diving into the cause or the drivers of behavior. Most people believe, and here's where, The Secret, as grateful as I am for The Secret, it's really kind of it's a surface level introduction to true personal performance, in my opinion, because it's not just about visualizing and there's a bicycle and it's going to be on your porch next morning. I mean, how's that one working for you? It doesn't work. And yet it was put together for a mass market and for mass appeal. And I'm grateful for it. I didn't totally agree with the way it was presented, but nonetheless, going back to this deep dive into drivers of behavior, the things that drive behavior, yes, visualizing is important. Yes, vibration and frequency, that's scientific. And what drives those things? Well, psychology tells us 95% of what drives that vibration or that frequency is buried in your unconscious mind. So think about that. What that means is that as you live consciously day to day, you're living on 5%, because 95% is driven by your programming and your conditioning. And so what we were doing in that retreat was we were diving deep into those unresolved emotional issues. And that's the work that Bersabeh and I both do right now to a large extent, because that's one of the greatest causes of lack of fulfillment as well as lack of achievement is fragmentation. People are fragmented. They've got all these things going on consciously and a whole lot more going on unconsciously that have been stuffed or denied. And so it was a tough week. And at the end of the week, and we worked long hours, I up close and personal. It was a very small event for me at the time, 54 people. And I worked with everyone one-on-one. At the end of the event, we had this experiential learning opportunity called a sweat lodge. And we'd done it for 5 years prior. Well, in 2009, it was always a highlight, Kevin, because it was kind of like a graduation ceremony. We'd done all this hard work throughout the week. We'd cried, we'd laughed, we'd hugged, we'd worked hard. And now we're going to practice what psychology calls transference. Take that hard experience and transfer it into an experiential learning opportunity where we'd have to push up against our own resistance and hopefully break through. And we'd done it 5 years prior, and it was always a highlight because it was tough. And we told everyone it was going to be tough. And people would come out victorious, and we'd celebrate, and we'd have a dinner afterwards, and everyone was on a high. Well, in 2009, something went horribly wrong. And according to the medical evidence, it was toxins. There were poisons, and that was written on the ER forms when people were admitted to the hospital. So if you're ahead of me, you kind of know where this is going, because at the end of the day, 3 people died in that activity, and it broke my heart. It literally broke my heart. These are 3 people that I got to know personally. They weren't clients anymore. They were friends, and I really cared about them. If you've ever lost anyone you loved and care about, then you know how that feels. And there was this big hole, this emptiness inside of me, and it felt like it was more than I could handle, and it was on my watch. It was the antithesis of anything I'd ever intended for anyone living an entire life attempting to create independent thinkers and help people empower themselves and set themselves free. Well, at the end of the day, the state of Arizona came after me, charged me with a crime, and came after me for manslaughter, which is intentional harm. Now, realistically, anyone with a brain knew it was a horrible accident. There was toxins. The medical evidence showed there was toxins. It showed that the location that put the lodge together, we had nothing to do with that. Burnt pressed wood. They put tarps on top, which hold the heat in. They stored the materials with rat poison and pesticides, and all the presenting problems. Did you want to ask a question? You look like you want to jump in there, Kevin. Go ahead.
Well, no, I'm just shocked that they're using pesticides and rat poisons and stuff where people are going to be in a sweat lodge situation.
Well, you and me both, because in a sweat lodge the pores open, and when it's on the ground, it gets absorbed immediately. The presenting physical problems at the ER were foaming at the mouth and dilated pupils. That's not heat related. That is not heat related, and the people were not dehydrated. And yet the state's whole case was I made it too hot. In the trial, which eventually ensued, they said I cranked it up to over 230 degrees. Now, I don't know how they got that, because no one had a thermometer in there, and none of them were in there besides me. So at the end of the day, they wanted 30 years. And if they had gotten what they wanted, we wouldn't be here with you today. Thank God the jury could not find one shred of evidence to back up manslaughter. There was no intentional harm. There wasn't. It was an accident. But there was a lesser inclusive called negligence. And that was by design too. They bumped it up to get 2 shots. And it was a media sensation. If you remember, it was all over. The media crucified me, literally crucified me. I went from media saint to media Satan, just like that. And they literally just, anyway, went after me hard. And it really shattered my world model and my whole idea of who we are as a country, who our legal system is. who our political system is, and it even shattered my own self-image. Quite frankly, it really beat me down hard. And so anyway, at the end of the day, I went to prison for 2 years. I came out in 2013. 10 years ago, I was $20 million in debt. I was homeless just 10 years ago, and I was completely alone. I didn't have my lovely wife at that time yet. And so what do you do? And so as a viewer today, as a listener today, if you're going through tough times, I get it. I get it. And there's a lot more to the story that I'm really condensing it. There's so many other things that just came at me and came at me and came at me. And by the grace of God, I had what it took to keep moving forward. And so 10 years ago, what do you do when you're standing in the middle of the desert in Arizona and you're homeless and you're $20 million in debt and you're alone? Well, you better have some great internal resources. You better have a great relationship with God. You better, however you define that, you better be able to know who you are, regardless of what the world says about you or believes about you.
James, I want to make this point real quick, and that is this: if you've ever gone, and I've gone to retreats where you're with 50, 75, maybe 100 people, and you're with them for days, and you become like a family.
Right.
It's a very close. You get to hear stories that you wouldn't otherwise hear from people. You get to help them through. They get to help you. There's no judgment. At least the ones that I've been to, and everybody wants to work together. So how a prosecutor at the end of that could accuse you of anything other than the purest motives, I don't quite get, other than the fact that they were using you as a way to get more publicity for themselves. Does that make any sense?
It makes total sense. It was, one of the things that I know to be true, and there's always exceptions to every rule, but I know that our legal system is not based upon justice and a search for truth. It's unfortunate. We've all been taught that it is, and I really wanted to believe that. And my lawyers even told me, hey, there's been multiple deaths in sweat lodges before. It'll be a civil issue, but it's never been prosecuted as a crime ever. Well, there's a first time for everything, isn't there? And it was in Prescott, Arizona, and the DA was running on a ticket of being tough on crime, and she was up for re-election, and she had a real opportunity to grandstand. It was all televised. And, at one point in the trial, Kevin, when all the evidence, Dr. Ian Pace from Harvard University was my doctor testifying on my behalf, went through 4,000 pages of medical evidence and testified under oath that it was most likely pesticides. She jumped up and said, and slammed the desk and said, I don't care if it is pesticides. James Arthur Ray is still responsible. Oh, I'm not sure how the logic follows on that. It doesn't. But, remember I said, true forgiving is the ability to say thank you for giving me that experience. I'm grateful for that experience. I don't want to do it again. Don't get me wrong, but I learned so much. I grew so much. There was no better place I can imagine to realize who I was and to utilize the things that I had taught for years, except in the hell that I lived in for 2 years. I mean, I talk about all this in my book, The Business of Redemption, which was a real cathartic. It took me 6 years to write that. It was a real catharsis for me. But I learned so much. I grew so much. I became stronger. I recognized who I am, even when the trolls and the haters were hammering me, as they do so well. And yet I know what the truth is, and I still do to this day. And fortunately, so did my lovely wife. And I'll tell you this one thing. I'll tell you two things, actually. first of all, she told me if she'd have met me back then, that she wouldn't be my wife now. So I'm really grateful for that reason, amongst many others, because I was quite full of myself. When I was on the top of the game, it's really easy to get carried away and kind of think you have it all figured out. And then the second thing is, if the viewer and you, Kevin, remember the secret, I was the genie guy. Your wish is my command. And
Yes.
if you don't recognize me, it's because I didn't have any gray hair. And you know why I have gray hair now?
Here we go.
It's because I'm married. If anyone who's married knows exactly what I'm talking about. So anyway.
Well, and the cool thing is, in our interview discussion, you two have not been apart since you got together, and you do everything together, and you work together, and that is really cool. I for one, James, I'm sorry that happened to you, but when you look at the totality of your life, I think it will prove to be something that not that three people passed away, but
Right.
the issues that you confronted, that you were able to get through, where you are now, where you're going, the people that you're going to help over time. I think really is an important place to be. And I'm glad that you didn't fold your tent and go home, as it were.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell those of you who are in the throes right now, and there's a lot of people in the throes. It's a challenging time. I will tell you, there were many times when I thought I was going to fold my tent, and that's, by the way, that doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It means you're human.
Yeah.
But I didn't. Just don't do it.
Yeah.
You can consider it, and that's human, and just don't do it. Keep moving forward, one step at a time, one day at a time. And of course, I've had a tremendous partner. We've been together for 10 years. We were work associates for the first 3 years, and then we became romantically involved, and now obviously we're a married couple. But the other thing, and I know you're going to talk to her, but one of the things that has made her so strong, she believed in me when I was 54 years of age, homeless, and $20 million in debt. Now that tells you a lot about this woman. I was living on mom's couch at 54 years of age and $20 million in debt, and she believed in me and wanted to come to work with me. And now, by the way, I work for her. She worked for me for the first 3 years, and now I work for her, which I'm totally good with. I'm totally good with that. I love my boss. But
that's a good business arrangement right there.
It's a great business arrangement. But nonetheless, part of why God sent us together, I think, is because of her background, which I know you know a little bit about, and both of us have been through hell and back. And I firmly believe, if you look at anyone, I don't care who it is, check history. The people who make a tremendous contribution to the world, and tremendous, if you're of the younger generation, you think that means you have to be a public figure and you have to be famous. No, that's not true. Tremendous contribution can be raising really respectful children and really virtuous and God-centered children. That's tremendous. But anyone who makes tremendous impact in the world has not had an easy life. Don't wish for easy. That's an illusion. Wish for greater capacity and capability to get through the challenges life brings, because that's what you want. You want the capacity and the capability to get through the challenges. And because Bersabeh had done that for herself, she's been able to stand by my side for the last 10 years and go through the turbulence that we've been going through to get where we are today.
You create your own life, and the experiences that you have, both good and bad, are necessary for you to get to where you want to go, where you said you wanted to go before you even get here, in my opinion.
That's true.
So it is so important. And while you're going through it, it hurts. Like I had what I called my bad country music song period, which was, my dad died, my dog died, my wife left, I lost my house. All those things happened to me as well. But you know what? I'm still here. Speaking of being here, we have to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to find out a little bit more about Bersabeh's story, because it is the two of you are coming out of and have come out of some really difficult period, and I'm so glad to have you here. By the way, we're talking with James. Go to his website, which is jamesray.com. James Arthur Ray is with us, as his lovely wife Bersabeh, and I will practice that all day, and I got it right, I think. And we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Positive Talk Radio on KK. Hey, PTR loyal listener. First, thanks for being in my dream. And second, I have a new concept in business to share with you. It's called socialpreneurship. So, what's that? Well, it's the idea that any company designates all profits beyond expenses to be awarded to a local or international charity or project which is working to achieve good in the world. KM Media is such a company. We believe that it's important for us to give back whenever possible and to make great things happen. So I hope you'll join us in creating this new business model that will positively impact all of us. In the next few weeks, we will lay out the plan and begin our fundraising efforts. So stay tuned for more details right here on Positive Talk Radio.
When you want to say more than words communicate, you can with flowers. Your custom boutique floral studio in Bothell, Washington is anaturaldesign.com, connecting you to nature through the language of flowers. Where your people are is where our flowers are beautiful. Your success is our goal. anaturaldesign.com at your fingertips today.
Hey, thanks for listening to Positive Talk Radio. Did you know that we're also a media production company? Well, surprise, we are. We can create all kinds of audio, video products to fill any need. Please visit kmmedia.pro/our-store for a complete list of products and services. In addition, do you need a great voice to add to your own website or any other project? I know that we can add depth and quality to your work. I've been told more times than I can count by many professionals in the business that my voice adds to the quality of the presentation. So let me create something for you. Please contact me at kevin@kmmedia.pro and let's create something great. And welcome back to Positive Talk Radio here on KIXI. I couldn't say it right the first time, so I had to say that again. We're talking with James Arthur Ray and his lovely better half and boss, Bersabeh.
I got to tell you, before you start talking to her on the break, she said, Kevin made a statement, and he's right. I never really thought about it. We literally have not been apart for 10 years. And I mean, that's not with the exception of this, it's literal. And so anyway,
I thought that was fascinating.
It's fascinating.
You're right.
And we're very happy. So
which is a small feat not unto itself. I mean, it's important that you're happy. And the interesting thing, James, is that you're a different guy. I think you're a totally different guy than you were way back when. But it was all a learning process, and it was going through. In order to get to where you are today, you had to do some of that. The extent of which, people lost their lives, but that was not something that you did. I think it was the rat poison, which is just amazing to me. And in any event, enough of that. I want to put that aside because Bersabeh, we're going to talk to you now. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well too. Now, you're not from around these parts. You came from a whole different country, didn't you?
Yes, I was actually born in Iran. I was born in Iran at a time where Iran was at war with Iraq. So all my childhood memories, first memories, imagine having bombs being dropped in your neighborhood and machine guns you'd hear at night, sirens going off. So it was, I was running away from bombs and guns. That was my childhood.
Jeez. And if memory serves me, that was in Blood and Treasure. That was a very significant war between those two countries.
Yes, yes, it was. And it was around the time the so-called revolution in the name of democracy in Iran, which turned out not to be that, was they were given a hard time to people whom had the religious beliefs in being Jewish, and Baha'i is what I was raised in, and some to Christianity as well. And because of that, we had to flee the country. We escaped. So we found someone who smuggled us out of the country. We escaped across the desert in the middle of the night at the risk of being caught. And you would be killed if we got caught. And thankfully, we made it across and went and had to stay in Pakistan for a couple years to get our papers to be able to come to the States.
And so you were actually able to get here. Where did you settle in the States?
First, when we came, when we first got here, we went to California because we had some family there. But from there, I think we only stayed for about maybe a year or so. Parents moved we moved to Arizona.
Arizona, our favorite state for both of us.
He was waiting for that. It was probably one of the worst times of my life.
Well,
Comparing to, I guess.
I'll tell you, Arizona's got problems to this day. That they're having problems.
Yeah. Not my favorite state.
Well, tell him a little bit about what happened to you in Arizona.
Yeah, okay. So Arizona at the time, excuse me, when we moved there, the population was, mostly Caucasian individuals. And we are not. So as you can imagine, we had a bit of a hard time, especially us kids going to school. We did get picked on and some names being called and this and that. But it's interesting to me because it was the younger generation that was there. They were more into, I want to say, gang related behavior, and which I think about it now is fascinating because you wouldn't really think of that when you think about Arizona. Would you?
Well,
But
you think of Arizona, you think of the snowbirds. They go down there in the summertime or in the wintertime and leave their northern homes, and then they go stay there and then they go back. But there's an underside to that community.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's
and she was strapped to the underbelly.
I was.
Yeah.
I was not the same person you see today. You kind of, okay, so the environment that I grew up in, and parents just, were fresh out of another country, barely spoke the language. They had to work double shifts, so they were gone all the time. So the kids, we had to be able to take care of ourselves, and the TV pretty much raised us. And because of the harsh environment that I endured growing up, I had to, what's the best way to say it? I had to become a certain person in order to be able to protect myself, if that makes sense.
Oh, sure.
So I did get into a lot of gang behaviors and drugs and smoking and drinking and all kinds of things to be able to survive in that environment. So it's been quite a journey. I removed myself at the age of I believe I was 19 or so, or 20 years old, and I just told my parents I'm leaving. I'm moving back to California.
Well, California is a better place to be rather than Arizona's got some. My son was in Tucson for a long time, and so I spent some time there.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different place. Now, I live on the left coast, which is Seattle, and California's on the left coast too. If you go to the Midwest, they say you live on the left coast. That's where all them liberals are.
Yeah.
But for me, it works. I'm glad you got out of there.
Yeah.
And now you also are working with James and you are doing the work as well as James is doing it. Describe how you became familiar with that and that whole process of how you became involved with that.
Sure. Well, I was really jacked up. No.
That's a technical term. That's very true. No.
Yeah, no, it's very true. I was, I had all kinds of traumatic experiences given my childhood, and those things, when they happen to you at such a young age, you grow up having certain behaviors that you can't figure out why, because of these traumatic experiences that I had. So fast forward, I had married once before, and it turned out to be a horrible marriage because it turned out to be verbally and physically abusive.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I decided to leave, and I think anyone who's been in a divorce, whether if it's a good you're leaving or bad you're leaving, it sucks either way.
Mm-hmm.
You have to come, and then because the person I married was in Belgium, so I had moved there, and then when I got divorced, I was like, okay, so now I got to go back in my mid-30s, and I have to start all over. Nothing like 54. I had to
thanks
move
for
in with my
grinding that
parents.
in, sweetheart. I appreciate that.
I'm just saying it wasn't as bad as yours. So, and when I came back, I was broken even more having to start over and figuring out what I want to do. And I was a smoker for 24 years. So then there was some kind of networking company that I was a part of, and they were having a special guest come in. And I didn't sign up for that company. A friend of mine signed me up and said, maybe you like to do this on the side to, till you figure out what it is you want to do. And I thought, yeah, okay. And I said, maybe I'll look into it. And they happened to be having a guest speaker come in from The Secret. I didn't know who it was. And I thought, well, maybe I'll go. So I ended up going, and I had no idea who it was. And I was sitting there, and I got there late. And he walks in, and at the time they were doing a documentary on his what had happened to him in Enlighten Us. And he walks in, and I'm looking at him, and I didn't recognize him because he had longer hair and a goatee. And I'm like, he wasn't in The Secret. Who's that guy? And then he looked at me and he smiled. I'm like, oh, it's the genie guy. I know who that is. So, and he got on stage doing his thing, and I was listening to him. He was so raw and real, and it very much resonated with me. And I thought, what kind of personal development is this? Because I've never been a part of that, and I've never done anything in it, just because I thought it's too much raw for me. And a lot of things that I had seen that people would say or espouse did not match their actions, and I never cared for it, and I wasn't interested because of that. But when I saw him and what he was saying, and I had no idea about the accident because I was in Belgium at the time that the whole Sedona thing went down. So, and there was something there, and I thought, well, this is interesting. You wouldn't imagine somebody would get up there and just be real. And I said, there's something different about
What a
this.
concept.
Yeah.
Right.
So when he got off stage, and I remember I was there with my younger sibling, and I turned to him and said, I'm like, I'm going to work for this guy because there's something there, and I couldn't put a finger on it, but I wanted some of that. There's this certainty, he has this presence and this certainty of just, having a solidity within you that I didn't have. And I think most people, fight to find that or have that, to have this self-awareness where you just know you're solid. And so I reached out to him. First
she stalked me on Facebook.
I did.
That's the reality.
That's how we all meet these days.
Yeah, yeah, he answered, and I said, "Hey, I'll work for you." And I think I told him, I don't know, I just listed a bunch of things. I'm like, I do this, I do that, I do this. I'll do whatever you want.
She basically told me my social media was terrible, and she has a background in
I
graphic
had to sell
design,
myself.
and she was right. My social media was terrible,
Yeah.
and so she said I can really help you with that, and we got together for
Mhm.
lunch, and
Yeah, and then he told me his whole story of what had happened and what he's doing, and I thought, and here's the thing, before we met, which was the interesting part, I went online, I went on Google and looked him up, and Google is not his friend, and I thought, whoa, this doesn't match the person that I met. So then when I had lunch with him and then seeing what I saw on the web and speaking with him, I thought these two do not match up at all. And that's when I said to myself, I'm like, oh, I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna make this happen. So here we are.
Well, what's interesting about your story and how you met James is that, and I think this is as close to the what happened in The Secret as, because what happened to you is real. And you weren't going to go to this conference. You weren't a member of this conference. You weren't going to. You only did it at the behest of somebody else, and you weren't really interested in it, but you went, and that was the key. Rather than saying no,
Yes.
you were being nudged by somewhere. I would choose to call it God or the universe,
Yeah.
and for you to go there.
Well, that's
And I think that's as close to how we can apply The Secret. And James, I'd love your opinion on this. How we can apply the principles of The Secret is to, when you get those opportunities that are presented to you, you don't say no.
Yes.
You go find out what it is, and then sometimes it'll work, sometimes it doesn't. In this case, turned out to be a 10-year relationship.
And it's a lifetime
Yeah.
relationship. We're
Well-
not going anywhere.
Well,
right?
15. What was it? No. Well, Kevin, I'll tell you. 15 years prior to that.
Oh, it gets better, Kevin. I was going to call her out. You don't know there's a better part to that with The Secret. So go ahead.
Okay, so I think it was 15 years prior to that when we first met. I was watching The Secret. I was probably in my mid-20s or something. I don't remember. And I remember watching it, and as I was watching his part, the way he was talking about something about a relationship and what you do, and the gist of what he was talking about. I was looking at that and I thought to myself, I'm like, I'd really love to be in a relationship with someone like that. I didn't say exactly him, but I said someone like that.
Be careful what you wish for, because the universe is going to bring it to you.
There you go.
Well,
Yeah.
but not without. I mean, isn't that but not without a whole lot of
Oh.
journey and stories and growth and stumbles and get back ups to the 15-year point where we actually met.
Mhm.
But that is the point. I'm the one that consistently reminds people, always have, that 60% of the word attraction is action.
Yeah.
And that's, people don't, unfortunately, that's why I said I don't totally agree with the way it was presented. I understand why it was done. It was made for a mass media market. And yet you've got to be in the right place at the right time to meet the right people, to get the right opportunities, to take the right action and get the right results. You have to do something. 60% is action. So yes, there's visualizing is important. Yes, feeling the feelings of belief is important. And then you have to, like the Quakers used to say, you got to pray and then move your feet. You got to get busy every single day, holding the vision, but you've got to do everything 100%. And Bersabeh and I live this to this day. If we go to bed at night, we even go to bed at the same time, and we do everything at the same time. But when we go to bed, if we go to bed at tonight and we say, okay, I feel physically tired, it was a good day. We gave 100% with Kevin on this podcast, on this show, and we gave 100% in everything we did today. And I feel a little physically, mentally tired. It was a good day.
Yeah.
And that's what it takes to bring those things, dare I say, manifest, which is so overused, but it means to make into form. To
Sure.
bring something into form, you've got to use your hands and your feet.
I'd love to throw this metaphor at you and see if you think that I'm out of my mind. It's something that I call the 50,000-foot view. We don't get the opportunity to have the 50,000-foot view of our life. We get to see the tree in front of us and the tree behind us. Our job is to keep walking, to be aware, to trust, and to keep walking. And then that the source or God or your guides or whoever you want to call them, they will help you so that you're walking in the right direction. And if you start walking in the wrong direction, they'll help you get back on track. Sometimes it can be a little painful, but that's the whole thing. So tell me, is that a reasonable thing to say?
It's not only reasonable, it's absolutely correct. You
Mm.
know, and I could use so many metaphors. You're driving across the desert, your headlights shine maybe 100 feet in front of you, and it's pitch black at night, and you can only see how to go to 100 feet. You go 100 feet and you go, and then you can see to go 100 feet more. You're climbing a mountain and you can only see a certain degree, but you get up higher and you can see how to go further. That's where faith comes in, and faith is not blind faith. Faith is an understanding that 50,000-foot view, which is, let's call it God's view, and to have faith that everything is unfolding as it should.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You know, let me give a new definition for positive thinking, because a lot of people say, "Oh, just be positive all the time. Just expect the best." Positive thinking is not expecting the best. Because, quite frankly, sometimes what you think is the best is actually the worst for you. You know, how many times have you thought, oh, I want to marry that woman, or I want to marry that guy, or I want to get that job? And then you get it and you're like, oh my God, this is a really bad thing to do.
Oh crap, what have I done?
Yeah. I mean, the Buddha, they asked the Buddha once, why don't you teach your students to pray? And he said, my students aren't awake enough to know what to pray for. And so, and that's about as profound as it gets. And so, to positive thinking is not expecting the best, because sometimes the worst is the best.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a fact. Look at the history of your life and you'll know that's true. Here's true positive thinking. True positive thinking is accepting that what is happening is the best. That's true positive thinking, accepting that what is happening is the best. Well, James, you know, I'm going into bankruptcy right now. Been there, I understand. And yes, I'm grateful for that too, because so many great lessons and so many great things came out of that. You know, well, they're foreclosing on my house. I've had 7 houses foreclosed on.
Oh crap.
You know, so I've been there, and I'm not minimizing anyone else's experience. Please understand.
Yeah.
I can relate. I have compassion for that. And yet I'm really grateful that I don't have those 7 places anymore, because all 7 of them had 7 mortgages. And it's just nuts. So true positive thinking is accepting that what is happening is the best. Even if you can't see it, you know that God, from, I love your 50,000-foot view, can see the whole unfolding, the full spectrum, and we can't, not yet.
I couldn't agree more. By the way, these two are going to be on Positive Talk Radio next Wednesday at 4 p.m. on KKNW again. And I want to thank the two of you for doing that. And sadly, we're going to run out of time. We could go another hour and a half, but Eric isn't going to let me, I'm afraid, because
Eric's got the iron hand.
Yeah.
he does. He's got responsibilities. We've got about a minute left. I would like you guys to tell our audience anything you'd like them to know.
Thank you for having us on, and we look forward to talking to you again next week.
Think for yourself. Do your own research.
Oh yeah.
I'll quote the Toltec: accept nothing at face value, even what we're telling you. Don't take it at face value. Dive deep, do your own research, get your own experience, and that's how you learn and grow.
Well, you guys are professional media people because you beat the timeline. Now I got another 30 seconds.
Oh, well, I've done this a time or two. Bersabeh is just a quick study. So
Yes.
I just hang out.
I got to tell you, the first time I met you, James and Bersabeh, I'm really taken with you because you're real people and you're honest and you really want to do great things for humanity. And that's my form of positive talk radio, is to bring people on that are going to do great things for humanity. And you guys are. And I'm sorry for the bad things, but at the same time, the journey is the journey. We just do the best we can and we get through it. I want to thank you guys for being here. You'll be back Wednesday at 4:00 on KKNW. And by the way, everybody, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. We'll see you Monday.
God bless.